Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Words on Whiskey, episode 11. And we're delighted to have some very special guests who personally are very important to me because they have been an inspiration to what we've done. They really are cheerleading the success of Irish whiskey worldwide. And it goes beyond that. They're ambassadors for the whiskey, the cocktail business, and for the whole of Ireland. I think everybody will agree. So, look, I just cut to the chase and bring them in. I have one important announcement at the very end. And if you'd like to hold on to the very end, I'll share that with everybody. And other than that, I'll just bring in the guys now. Sean, Jack, welcome. Welcome to Dublin from New York. And you're in the bar. Look, I'm delighted that you guys have joined us. It means an awful lot. And people are really interested in what you're doing and how you're managing in the current climate with everything going on. So I see you're in the bar, but everything is shut.
Yeah, we're the only people in the bar.
You're the only people.
there's two managers, but it's just us.
You're doing both roles, all roles. Look, thanks, as I said, for coming on. They are difficult times, and I know taking time out now is not the easiest getting around. What's been happening? You've been closed since when, and what's the outlook like, and how's the general situation in New York?
I mean, we've been closed since March 16th. They were starting to edge towards closing down in the second week of March, and obviously the pandemic proliferated. So we've been closed since then. The general state of play in New York, obviously in America, there's the 50 states, and each one of those states are in different phases because they're handling it differently. New York just completely shut down, and they started going through a phased reopening. So there was 4 different phases. The bars and restaurants were in phase 3, but we were getting closer to phase 3 in terms of the bars and restaurants, but that obviously coincided with a widespread re-emergence of the pandemic in middle and west of America. So that led to our governor basically saying that you're not reopening. And they only are allowing outside establishments, which is not available to us because we have bus stops outside, so we can't open that. So we're closed. There's no indoor. There isn't no indoor bars or restaurants, and it looks like that. I think that towards the end of September, we'll get a better picture of when it's going to reopen. But it's not inconceivable to myself and Sean that we won't be reopened for that type of service until early next year.
Really, that long?
Yeah.
And personally, have you been affected? You haven't, or none of your staff have hit the virus or anything? No.
We haven't got the virus, either one of us. My fiance got the virus. She had the antibodies when we were tested, but I think some of the staff have had it. But I mean, all of our staff are laid off.
Right. Okay.
They're furloughed. Some of them have moved back to their original homes in America and stuff like that, with their families because they can't afford the rent without the income, and obviously a big city like New York. So it's sad in that regard because, I mean, you know how much we value our staff and we invest in them with the education stuff and look after them with a bunch of different things. So it's definitely a very challenging time.
I mean, that must be one of the most upsetting parts of the whole thing, obviously, seeing the staff that you have invested in and staff that are incredibly loyal, incredibly hardworking for you as well. And I'm sure that's a common bar thing.
I mean, like just before we closed, the quarter before we closed, so from the start of January until St. Patrick's Day, we literally, me and Jack were loving every minute of being in this bar. We felt we'd finally got where we wanted to get with staff, with product offering, with everything, the way the place looks. We just felt this is the best it's ever been, and it took years to get the staff that we wanted. It took years to get. There was no bad eggs, as we say back home. There was no there was nobody. There was a problem. Everybody was a good employee and a loyal employee, and we were happy with the entire team. So to lose that team was devastating, and it took years. That's Jack's sort of responsibility, is where he takes control of all staff recruitment and trainings and things like that. But what he put into that over years, and to see it all just go like that that's devastating for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just the financial; it's the emotional, and it's the the energy that's gone in, which I'm sure is.
I tell you, like Jack sent an email out like last week, two weeks ago, briefing the staff that were sort of hanging on, waiting to hear what would happen, and some of the staff have moved back to different parts of America, like Chicago or LA, whatever, to live with their families during all this.
Yeah.
But when he sent the email out, it was devastating to the staff. I mean, they weren't expecting it, and I'm surprised that they weren't expecting it because we're all aware of what's happening over here. But it was devastating because I mean, they all love the bar and they love being, and they know that we're good employers. So so it was devastating for everybody. It's devastating for us, devastating for them.
I know. What is it in terms of employees that you look for actually?
I mean, for us, the big thing is obviously the. I mean, we've kind of went through a journey with that. When we started, myself particularly with the second floor being a more cocktail operation, focused and downstairs being the pub. I was looking more for kind of technical proficiency, but with us moving more and more into our kind of raison d'etre of like bringing the Irish pub into the 21st century. The thing that we've realized now, being open 78 years, is that we realize now that skill, like your attitude and your personality, is much more important than everything else.
Yeah.
We have the training infrastructure, or we had the training infrastructure to train the skills. So for us, it's all to do with your personality, your hospitality skills, your ambition, your hunger, to be the best version of yourself. So that's really the kind of stuff that we look for.
Yeah. Look, I've no doubt if you'd kept going normal anyway, you'd be rejigging the bar anyway. You'd be looking for something to do. You don't really sit idle on your laurels and take it for granted. You constantly reinvent stuff. So, I mean, have you had a chance to do any of that now over this period, or?
I mean, I would echo what Sean said. It's the first time. I mean, we've been open 7 years now, and it was the first time that the bar had really from the front of house, back of house, from the offering to the customer engagement, the financial performance. The bar was really firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
So it was heartbreaking. We really were in a great place.
Yeah.
The thing that is most upsetting, we had literally just launched our Irish Whiskey Genius program, which was geared towards making sure it's inspired by the Apple Genius bar. And basically those people know, when you go in, they know everything about everything that they sell, all Apple products. And we wanted to put a structure in place that with our staff, where they knew everything about all Irish whiskies, the distilleries, the history, the new distilleries coming on board, all the labels, all the different styles. So we spent an awful, say probably a year and a half putting that together, and we had literally just launched it. So it was very sad to see that kind of fall by the wayside. But I mean, that's something that we'll obviously pick up.
It's not lost. It's not lost for good.
It's all done. But in terms of like stuff we're working on now, to be honest with you, we're just working on staying afloat and keeping the brand alive. That's really what we're.
But we're also working on 2 books. One's about Irish whiskey cocktails, specifically about Irish whiskey cocktails. And I mean, we personally think it's going to be a big book. We're probably going to launch it 2022, around about St. Patrick's Day. And the other one that we're working on is it's one that's close to our hearts, and one that I'm sure is close to a lot of people back home's hearts. We're working on and we've been working on it for a year. We've had people in Ireland, like archivists and people like that, genealogists, involved in finding the information out for us. And we've got the same over here. There's people over here that historical, like people who get all the historical accuracy right for you. But we're doing a book about the Irish coffee, and particularly like all the rumors about where it was created, and we're going to bring together the full story of who Joe Sheridan was, and like what happened in Dublin, Pim's department store, and then what happened in Shannon, and then what happened in America, and we're just going to talk. And it's like the guy that we've had in Ireland working with us is a guy called Sean T. Farrell. And he's really clued in. He's done a lot of work with Rowan Co. and all that sort of stuff, finding out all the historical information. But the stuff that he has sent us back about this Irish coffee is like second to none, man. It's like it's now become a book that we're really, really excited about, and we want to, because every time I read an article about the Irish coffee, and I hear about the Brazilian coffee and all that, is that Brazilian? Every time I hear that, it sort of makes me cringe, because I know where it's going to start and I know where it's going to end, and I know there's stuff that happened after that, there's stuff that happened before that. Where's all that information? And it's like, because nobody knows.
Yeah.
We're really delving into the history books to get this information, because I think everybody in Ireland wants to know this history. I definitely want to know it, and we're excited about that. So we're looking at doing both those books by St. Patrick's 2022.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're huge proponents of Irish whiskey, and I know when you were here doing your tour, one of the things that stuck out to me when you were talking is, why doesn't any bar in Ireland grab, the Irish coffee story and say they're making the best Irish coffee in Ireland, and it was just something that stuck with me. So it's Irish coffee, obviously a huge seller, and it's a great entry point into whiskey, but I know you have a special recipe for your own. What's your standard whiskey for your Irish coffee there?
So we use Bushmills, just
Right.
the original.
Right.
So there's obviously we're both now. Obviously, we're aware that the history, or at least that's what it says in the tin. We'll obviously elaborate on that more in the book. But the history was meant to be a single pot still.
Yeah.
For us, we see the Irish coffee much more as a gateway cocktail, as you said, an entry point.
Yeah.
So we find the higher grain percentage blends work really well as an access point in the Irish whiskey. So we use the Bushmills original. We're both from County Antrim, so there's that history there. So that's what we've used. It's we sell thousands. Well, when we were open, we sold thousands a week.
Yeah.
And we created our own glass. We went all out in every single component of the Irish coffee to get every single piece of that: the sugar, the coffee, the cream, the whiskey, the glass. And then obviously the book is just a further extension and evolution of kind of our journey of perfecting that Irish coffee. So there's no one person. I mean, you could talk about Dale de Groff. He was the person that first inspired Sean, and he was involved in co-creating the recipe with Gillian. But the Irish coffee, the evolution of it in this bar, there's been so many influences and so many people involved to perfecting that. Really, I think there's that quote where it takes a village to rear a kid type thing. The Irish coffee is exactly the same as that. At least our story of the Irish coffee.
Yeah. Well, when I think of you guys and the success you've had, I tend to think of people in the food trade and the restaurant business that have Michelin stars. I mean, you're obsessive, and you take it to the level of detail that a Michelin star chef would bring it to. Is there a burden of that? Like, you've achieved the success we'll talk about that later on, but the level of success, is there a greater pressure to maintain it than to achieve it in the first place? So
I can only speak. I think myself and Sean are identical in that regards. When we wake up, we're never happy. There's always something that
he's definitely never happy.
No, I mean, I'm not saying that. I mean, I'm not in life.
Never satisfied.
About the bar in and of itself. I'm talking about specifically.
Yeah.
We always think that there's room for improvement. So we had the obsession, like we go through. We see one thing, we attack that until it gets to the level that we want, and then as soon as that's done and we're happy with that, we obviously go into a kind of oversight pattern, but then we move straight on to the next thing. So
were you always like that? Were you like that as kids growing up? I mean, was that attention to detail, that I'm going to say compulsion almost, to have things right, or or is it something that you develop?
And one of our staff members was doing something like this a while back over here, and the person on the other end asked her, tell us about Dead Rabbit, and she said, like, and she's our head bartender here, but she turned around and said, do you ever see the way when you go to a bar, you sort of come to a point, if you've been there a few years, where you can't really go any further, and you sort of need to change, you need to move on. She says, Dead Rabbit is always evolving, and so you're always evolving with it, so you don't ever come to that point where you feel you've had enough and it's time to move on, because it's constantly changing. And I think it excites us, because we don't ever want to be still. We don't ever want to be at a standstill. We want to keep moving and keep going and keep coming up with ideas that we think are like what the sort of ideas that we come up with, like the book on Irish whiskey cocktails. We had an Irish whiskey fest over here last year, and it was basically our staff that were doing the drinks. It was all Irish whiskey cocktails, and we're sitting there at the bar, and we said, God, we need to do a book about these drinks. But that's what I'm saying. An idea like that, because but you've just got to constantly keep thinking outside the box. What's needed, what's missing, What can we do to fill that gap? You know, that type of thing all the time.
I mean, one thing that impresses me is that there's not always a direct. I know you're all about. It's important, of course, to build a brand, and you've built a really successful brand. And a lot of the things that you do are financially beneficial, and some of them aren't. You know, so like the process of writing a book is not necessarily a profit making exercise, or doing fancy cocktail menus. Not necessarily. I mean, the level you take it to doesn't necessarily generate direct extra revenue, but it builds the brand.
It builds a brand, yeah.
Yeah, and you've built a very, very strong brand, either from the mascot that you started off with, and then the rabbit itself, and the brand name, and you've taken it to the books, and you've taken it to your whiskey, which I'll talk about as well at some point. So I'm sure there's going to be iterations of that in the future as well. But I've got your book as well there. I just want to show people the books that you've done, and this is only some of them, so forgive me for not showing them all. So the first one there is the drinks manual. Ben Schaefer, and I've spoken to Ben before as well. So that's going back a fair bit, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. 2014 was that one?
Yeah. And then the mixology and mayhem. I think Connor Kelly helped with that as well.
Yeah.
Did he?
Connor wrote that book as well, Barley to Blarney.
Yeah. So Connor wrote that, and Elaine Hill was the photographer, and then you had Tim Hurley, who I met in Dublin last week, and he put us in touch. And I just want to talk about that Barney to Barley book. It's hard to say, actually. But it's a fantastic book.
I'll tell you how the idea, like just to quickly tell you how the idea came about. I was always going back to Ireland to. Jack would have been doing a wee bit himself, but I was always going back like a couple of times a year to look at old pubs. And Ger Buckley from Middleton, he would have met me in Dublin. Yeah, I flew in at the airport. Ger would have picked me up. We might have hung about in Dublin for a couple of nights before we travelled right round. I would have had maybe 2 counties, and we would have visited 50 pubs or 30 pubs, whatever it was. So I kept bumping into Tim Hurley in Dublin, and I remember clearly it was in Mulligan's.
Pullback Street. I met you guys there too.
Yeah, it might have actually been that night. I'm not joking.
All right.
Tim said to me, "We can't keep doing this. Keep bumping into each other like this. We actually all write a book about this and put some distillery stuff in it as well, about the pubs and the distilleries." And it was a hard sell getting a publisher over here because they wanted to do distilleries. They didn't want to do pubs. But the reason why I found it interesting to do the pubs was because I was bumping in just the way I kept bumping into Tim. I was bumping into Americans, and there wasn't like millions of them around, but there was a handful of Americans. If I went to a distillery, if I went to Slane Distillery or I went to Teeling Distillery, there was a handful of Americans that were going there. And the thing that they were asking you was, where do we go after we've done the distillery? We're in Ireland. This is the first time here. Tell us what to do. And we were getting email requests from Americans over here. I'm going to Ireland next month. And they looked at us as if to say, we'll trust your word. What pub should we, if we want to see a real Irish pub, where should we go? So we wanted to do it like by region. So if you were driving around the country, these are the pubs that we think you should go to, and these are these are all the distilleries, but these are the pubs if you're in that area that we think you should go to. But that's how it started in Morris, in Mulligan's and Pullback Street. Yeah.
Well, for me, it's a perfect mix of the distilleries, the pubs, and the history. Yeah. Like every section is nicely introduced, a little bit of history, goes to the pubs and talks about the distillery. And even we get asked more often than not is what pubs should we go to? So people are interested in the distillery, but they want to know where they can go and enjoy it. A lot of the distilleries, of course, have their visitor centers and they are enjoyable. But
not only that, to be honest with you, a person in America's idea or knowledge of an Irish pub isn't like what our knowledge of an Irish pub is. They see a lot of plastic pubs over here, plastic potties, and. There are a handful of good pubs, Irish pubs in America. There's no doubt. Don't be thinking for 1 second I'm saying none of them are good. There's a bunch of them that are good, but most of them aren't good. And I'll go on the record saying that because most of them are not good. So
they'll be offended. You'll be in trouble.
When American comes to Ireland, you obviously want to showing them your best. You want to say, this is an Irish pub. This is an Irish pub. This is what we consider an Irish pub to be, you know. So they were basically looking at us because they trusted our opinion on the matter, you know.
Yeah. Well, what was it like to travel around for, was it basically 2 months with Tim, and I think your dad was driving the van?
I'll let Jack answer that one.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, when you look back now, all you have is fond memories. And you obviously have the book in your hand, so it's tangible. It was an intent. Like I think a lot of people, when they see a couple of hundred pubs and 50 or 30 distilleries and stuff, they think it's heavenly, but it was very intense in terms of, like, you were doing, could have been a couple of distilleries a day, 5 to 10 pubs. You were doing local, like, things of interest, like scenery and monuments and stuff like that. So it was, don't get me wrong, it was an amazing trip, but it was definitely full on. It was the first one was 2 weeks in duration, and then the second one was just over 2.5 weeks. So it was high octane, but it was, I mean, obviously the work speaks for itself when you see the book.
And I would just like to add, now that we're talking about this, when we were at the Dublin Liberties Distillery last year launching the book, I think you were there.
I was, yeah.
I sort of thanked everybody involved, and I forgot to thank Jack's father. So I want to go on the record right now as thanking him, because the morning after, I could not believe that I forgot to thank him. And I said to him that night in the hotel that we stayed in, I cannot believe I didn't thank you. God, I thanked everybody except you. And he nodded. So I want to thank him with my heart now. And I want to tell you now, if this was Big Brother, you know, the thing on TV, Jack's dad would have won it, because everybody else was driving everybody insane. So Jack's dad was the winner of Big Brother.
It's weird. I'm getting people from joining from all over, from Osaka, from Stockholm, from Germany. I have a question in here. What is the question? To use them back. Could you ask if they have plans to be involved in releasing or collaborating on another whiskey following on from the success of the Dead Rabbit?
So there's stuff happening with Dead Rabbit that we can't really get into, but there is plans for other expressions within the category, but they're still in very, very early stages. So we're not in any place to kind of talk about that just yet.
Early days.
You probably know more than we do.
well, we had Stephanie Sheen on. One of our first episodes, second one, I think it was, and she's a tremendous ambassador. And actually, what shone through is that your philosophy is really in line with hers, and hers with yours. That was a great pick, and she's a great brand ambassador for you. So I hope she should be back on the road soon with you guys. But speaking of your dad, Jack, you obviously, and it's very evident to me that you have a very special relationship with your father. I mean, it just shows from the few times I've seen you together that you do. How important is your family to you, and how much do you miss them being out there? Not to say, Sean, that you don't miss your family, and but it just struck me that Jack's relationship with his dad is very strong.
I mean, my father's my best man at my when I have my wedding. So my father's like I see Sean as a brother, and I see my father as my best friend, you know. So family, I know for both of us, family is extremely important. And we take any opportunity to get home as much as we can. We try to get back once every couple of months to touch base with the people that are closest to us. So, and it's the same in New York. Like the family, like we have a very small circle. In New York, it's it's Sean or the people that work here, and we have a couple of other people, and we keep everything very, very tight, you know. So the people close to us are very important, and that goes across all relationships, vendors, business partners. We keep everything very tight and locked in.
I was already between St. Patrick's Day when we closed, and now I'm going back to Ireland next week.
But you're going to miss Tim. Tim was over last week. I think he's going back.
Before that, I was already supposed to be in Ireland twice. Back between lockdown and that, and I had to cancel both times.
Yeah, I mean, that side of it must be difficult. Any long-term plans to come back?
I mean, I think me and my wife will end up back in maybe about 8 or so years. I know Jack's planning on staying here, but I think we'll end up back. We're homebirds, you know, and there's no place like home at the end of the day, you know. I still very much refer to Ireland as home. I don't refer to New York as home.
Well, you can take the boy out of Belfast. You can't take Belfast out of the boy, or something like that, or something.
I mean, sometimes you confuse like a New Yorker when you're sitting saying, "I'm going home next week," and they're thinking, "But you're home." No, I'm going home. You know.
Well, I mean, often the Irish, when they go abroad, they're more Irish away than they are when they come home.
Yeah.
You know.
Listen, my mum was a very like patriotic Irish woman. She loved everything about that country, everything about it, and it's like she always told me, like, when you were a kid growing up, you wanted to go to Spain, you wanted to go to the sunshine, you know, and she was telling you things like, look at that sea out there, and it was like the Atlantic or something. It looked, it was rough as hell up in Donegal or somewhere, and you were thinking, what the hell's pretty about that? But you don't understand until you're older. And it's like I completely understand now, but I didn't understand as a kid, you know.
Jack is too young. He'll learn.
No, listen, I have a huge affiliation and affection for Donegal. That's where I spend most of my time in the summer.
Where do you go when you go?
So I spend my time between Gortahork and Falcara. But I mean, I get home as much as possible, but my fiance's American, and I'm most likely going to have American kids and stuff like that, you know. So I will always make a huge point and emphasize going back home every couple of months. You know, I look at it. It's not the summer. I don't know if you've watched Avatar, but when they click in to become the avatars, that's the way I look at going back home to Ireland. You know, it's
yeah.
You know,
so it's weird. Falcara, actually.
That's a quote and a half.
I've got the car stuck in the sand on Falcara Beach twice.
Yeah, my father's done that a bunch of times too.
And the tractor comes out and gets you.
Yeah.
I think he's making a fortune, that tractor man. Like, but it's a great business. Look, I want to take you back to Belfast, if you wouldn't mind, and talk about where your upbringing and where you came from. I know you're both from Ardoyne, and nothing wrong with Ardoyne, but it was a difficult time. I'd imagine when you grew up at that period, it was a difficult time. There were the troubles going on, and you know, we look at Belfast today, and it's unrecognizable from what it was back then.
Listen, my grandmother always said to me, and I was growing up, there's 20 years of an age gap between me and Jackie, 19 years, something like that. So my grandmother always said there'll be no peace in my lifetime, and it's just, see, when peace came to Northern Ireland, nobody understood it. Like, nobody believed it. It was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, you see, to drop your guard, because you were always on, as we said in Belfast, you were always on code red. You always believed every passing car was a potential gunman that was out to kill you. And you were on code red every minute of the day. See, did not feel that way. That was weird. To let your guard drop was like, it took years. It didn't happen.
But I mean, even in the last 7-8 years, you know, you still see what you see now. I think in Belfast is an optimism that wasn't there before. I think probably the 10 years before that was just a relief from all the hassle. I mean, you know, there's been a huge change. And as I said last week, I mean, we dedicated last week's show to John Hume because I think he played a significant role, and it's important that people recognize that. But what was it like growing up back then in Ardoyne?
I mean, listen, it was it's just, you got on with it, you know, but it was very tough. And when you think back, when I hear what people are complaining about today in today's world versus what we had when we grew up, and I think that has all just been passed under the carpet. Kids, we were kids, you know, and see, to walk out your front door and for like a British Army guy to be sitting pointing his gun at your head, like target practice, like he wasn't shooting, but see the fact that you were in his sights when you were 7 years old, and it was normal. And standing beside British soldiers, because you're always curious about their guns, but they were using you as a cover. They wanted the kids to come over and play with them, so nobody would throw a bomb at them. It's just, when you think about what was happening, it's just, I'm talking about when I was a kid, like it was just like, to think that happened in today's world. It's
I remember spending a couple of nights in the GAA club in Ardoyne, and that was an experience, and that was only 12 years ago. No, actually, 2006, 2007, different times.
Going to that club at any time is always an experience.
And then they used to have the Fela on once a year as well. Where
they sort of have to know you in that club.
Well, I got food poisoning from the burger bar. That's all I remember. But
that doesn't surprise me.
So look, I mean, you started off your career, Jack. You got a job from your uncle, was it? Yeah. Or initially in the hunting and ended up in Georgetown.
Yeah, in the hunting lodge. So it's just the bottom of Georgetown Road.
Yeah, is that still there?
I believe so, yeah, but they've added on a big extension for like I don't even know what it is. I think it's a crash or something like that. But the company that owned it have sold it, and they're doing like the bar is still there, but it's vastly different from what it was when I worked there. I'm not saying it was any great shakes, but it's definitely very different to what it was.
I mean, when you started off, did you think bartending was be a career? Was that what you?
I mean, when I started working in the Hunt Lodge, definitely not. I looked at it like I was always asking my mum and dad for money. And I think they just got fed up with it and said, if you want it, you've got to go out and earn it yourself. So I got a job through, obviously my cousin ran that pub. And I worked there. I enjoyed it. At that point, it wasn't an obsession. It only became an obsession when I started moving around with that cousin and started to see cocktails being made, and then meeting a former colleague of Sean called Kieran Breen that worked in a bar in East Belfast.
Was that Tattoo?
South Belfast. South Belfast, isn't it? Yeah, so Tattoo. And that's when I started going to the Connoisseurs Club that Sean ran. And the speakers were Sasha Petrosky, Gary Reagan, Audrey Saunders, like all the heavy hitters. Yeah. And that's when I realized at that point that there was definitely a career in this if you completely dedicated yourself to it. So that's how we ended up working together.
And Sean, you started off in the bars, and then you ended up running a management bar company, or what exactly?
I started off. I mean, listen, I couldn't when I was younger. It was different when Jack was like 18 versus when I was 18. You couldn't get a job. When I was 18, it was impossible to get a job. It was everything you would imagine, like those times to be. You're talking about like early 1990s, late 19.
I remember them.
89s, whatever. And it was just there was no jobs. We couldn't even. Me and my mate couldn't get a job packing shelves in a supermarket. Like you just couldn't get jobs. And he was at the job market every single day in life trying to get any kind of a job. There just was no jobs. But I knew that for me to like, and the troubles were happening as well. It was making me very like I felt like I needed to get out. I needed like escape from the place. I needed just to get out to transplant myself somewhere else. And I believe that bartending was something I could learn, dedicate a year to learning, and then go to work overseas and just get out of the pressure cooker that Northern Ireland, where Belfast was at those times. Yeah. So I went to work on a job training program, which is like I don't know if I have them anymore.
Training scheme or something, or one of those.
£10 a week on top of your dole. And the good thing about it was you didn't have to sign on, because signing on was embarrassing. You went down there and it was like 50 people knew you, and it was just embarrassing, all calling you. It was just embarrassing. So the thing about the JTP that was good is you didn't have to go in and sign on, and you got the extra 10 quid a week. So you were getting 40 quid a week to learn to bartend, and I did that for a year, and then I got a job in Scotland. And again, it was like, Jack, I didn't take it seriously for about 7 or 8 years, and then I decided one day I need to take it seriously if I'm gonna.
Was it a wake up moment? Was it just a sudden decision? So I better start getting my act together, or what?
Yeah, well, it was like. It was the time, and I'll just speak out. I don't like talking about this because it always gets me emotional. But it was the sort of time when Billy Wright, the Northern Ireland ceasefires hadn't.
Oh yeah.
They were in place, but there was still a few things that were happening, and it was around 1997 or something. And Billy Wright was this loyalist leader that was killed inside jail, and you knew when you're watching the news all the time, you're always glued to the news. And I was working in a local bar, and it was called the Ceasefire because it opened at the ceasefire. They always had these wee funny nicknames for all these bars. But Billy Wright was killed. You're glued to the TV. Everybody's glued to the TV because you know what's going to happen next. Is that they're going to come out and kill 20 people in retaliation for this guy. So you're looking at every night. It's a bar. It's a nightclub, and you just knew. I knew that it was going to be that bar that I was working at. So they came in one night and they killed this guy that had never been there before. And the only reason why they didn't kill a lot more people was because the guns jammed. But they shot a lot of people that didn't die. And when you came in the next morning and stuff, and you seen the mess, and I didn't understand it. When something like that happens, you clean it up. I thought forensics people clean that shit up. You clean it up. The bar, and so you're getting in the next day and you're seeing a shocking mess. And I was just, that is what made me decide I need to get out of this. And then I decided I'm going to take this seriously. But the first thing about being serious back in those days was you needed to break free from the local neighborhoods and go into the city centre.
It's so funny.
See, going into the city centre back then, that was a ballsy move. Because that's when you were going out of your bubble. You're going out of the safety net of your own bubble into the city centre, and anything can happen in the city centre. So that's what I had to do, was to go into the city centre.
See, I've lived in Belfast twice, actually. I lived in Belfast 25 years ago, and I lived in Belfast 8 and 9 years ago, and the difference between the two. But I mean, you talk to people from Belfast now, and there's not that necessary desire. I mean, 20 years ago, everybody wanted to leave Belfast.
Yeah.
Now people see Belfast as a place of opportunity now. And
Yeah.
okay, I know we're going through these troubled times, but people. I mean, if you look at the bar scene in Belfast, and that's no disrespect to the bar scene in the rest of the country, the variety, the live music, the knowledge is stronger in Belfast, I think, than anywhere else. I mean, you look at the bars there, the collections they have. Look at Willie Jack's bar, Bittles bar. You know, it's, and I don't know. I can only see good things in the long run for Belfast, hopefully. But yeah, what was I going to? I was going to ask you about what was the decision then to go to America? Sorry, before that, you ended up working together in The Merchant.
Yeah.
Now, forgive me for saying this, but going from where you were to working in the top 5-star hotel in Belfast, in Ireland almost, it's the only AA 5-star rated hotel. So that's on the outside. Let me show what it's look on the inside. Let me see. And that's the inside.
Yeah.
How did you end up working here?
So when I went to the city centre, I was telling you about a minute ago, I went to work for the best operator in Belfast and Northern Ireland in those days, to be honest with you, Jazz Mooney. And he owned a couple of really good cocktail bars, and I learned a lot. I worked there for 4 years, and I learned a lot. And then in 2002, I decided I was going to start my own sort of little consultancy company, getting into bars and teaching people how to make cocktails.
Yeah.
And I did that for like 2 years, and I was working for various drinks companies and things like that, and building a bit of a name for myself. So by the time that The Merchant came to open, I was really the only person, and like I'd been doing this for a bunch of years, and I was really the only person on anybody's radar that could do this type of stuff. So Bill Woolsey sort of came looking for me, because of the reputation it built during that wee business thing, and like basically I knew I was on the lookout for. I was at a point in 2005. I was at a point when I couldn't go any further in the industry, and I'd hit the brick wall that the girl I was telling you about earlier said you hit. I'd hit that brick wall, and there was nothing else for me in the country. I was going to have to leave to go to London or something like that. And when Bill Woolsey opened that bar at that time, it was just like a godsend. It was what I wanted, what I really wanted on my own doorstep, and I wasn't going to have to go overseas for it. So it was a big opportunity. And Bill Woolsey himself, when he met me, he basically said that I was ahead of my time doing the stuff that I was doing, and that if cocktails are ever going to work in Northern Ireland, they're going to work in this bar. And he basically, what he said then was true, and I believed that fully. And then the Merchant it was like when we were there, it was a really cool place, and I mean, it's still a beautiful looking place, but it doesn't have the heart that it had. I'm talking about the bar now. It doesn't have the heart that it had when we were there, but it's still a beautiful place to go. But we did something, I think for the time, 2006 to 2010, we did something very special there. And then the opportunity.
Did you bring Jack in there? Did you, or was Jack there already?
As Jack said, Kieran Breen, who Jack worked with, was a guy that used to work in The Merchant with me, and he went up. He was working with Jack. He impressed Jack, and and Jack wanted to learn more. And Kieran Breen basically said to him he should go back down to me, because Kieran Breen wasn't staying in the industry. And he basically said to Jack, if you want to stay in the industry, you need to be working with Sean, because he was the way Kieran Breen was saying it, that Jack was Sean's thinking the way you're starting to think. So you should be together rather than. But I'll tell you, and I want to go on the record of saying this. Kieran Breen left the hotel in bad terms. He had a problem with the hotel management, which is fine. A lot of people have problems with hotel management. But he went to work in this bar where he met Jack, and he was impressing Jack. And basically what happened was the bar that he met Jack in, it was open and closed in a few months. And that place, the tattoo place, it's always had that type of problem. It's always opened and closed and be something else. But Jack, Kieran Breen said, can I talk to you? And he came up to my house in North Belfast, in Ardoyne. And he basically said to me, you might have heard me talking about this wee lad, Jack McGarry. And Jack was only 18 at the time. And he said, you might have heard me. So that's 13 years ago. And he said, you might have heard me talking about Jack McGarry. He said, he's one of the, and Kieran Breen was a very, very accomplished bartender. So Kieran Breen was telling me that Jack was like one of the most impressive bartenders he'd ever seen. And he basically said to me, he wanted him to come to work in the merchant with me because his place was closing. And he basically said to me, and this is true. He said to me, if I'm unable to take this guy on in the merchant, this country is going to lose the best bartender it ever produced. So that's what he said to me.
That's some accolade, yeah.
Yeah, and to think about it, like, I mean, imagine an Irish bartending industry without a Jack McGarry, you know. So the guy you would be talking about, you know.
Yeah, I mean, how did you? I mean, obviously, you're no clown in the bartending side yourself, obviously. But
I mean, I'm not like, I'm more of a thinker, more of an ideas guy, more of a like, conceptual type. Jack was, and he's not now, but when he was bartending, he was. I mean,
what made you good, Jack? What made you good?
Well, I mean, the big thing, I think that I become extremely obsessive when I zoom in on something, you know, but I have to get to that point where I decide I'm going to go all in. So I'm extremely disinterested until I'm interested.
So it's all or nothing.
Yeah, and that's like, I have a mental health condition which obviously exacerbates that. But back then, bartending was that thing. Now it's Irish whiskey and Irish pubs and other things. But when I was all about learning as much as possible and working with Sean, the thing that I wouldn't have become that bartender had I went and worked with somebody who didn't give me the space to kind of to figure that out and make mistakes and feel better, you know. And Sean was a person that pointed me in the direction of the right literature, pointed me in the direction of who you should be targeting in terms of the best bartenders in the world.
Yeah. And it's not only that, but in the merchant, for example, I would have created events and brought the right people to the bar. And Jack was like the star of the show. So I was basically, Jack was working for me because Jack was backing me up when I brought people there. And and I was working for Jack because I was bringing people to show so he could show off his talent. So it was working both ways. And that's, I suppose, me being able to do that was what inspired Jack, and I suppose Jack being able to do it was what inspired me. You know?
So it's a perfect compliment, the two of you. I mean, you do have Sean, I think, a great ability to let people run with their talents.
Yeah, and now we're doing the same with Gillian over here. We've taken and Gillian, if she was talking to you, she would tell you exactly the same thing. We don't stand in her way. We support her fully. Yeah, and we've taken a backseat to let her move forward. You know,
I have to say, I met Gillian.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go on.
You know, we want her to be the face of the bar now. You know.
Yeah. Like, I met Gillian at the pop-up bar you'd done here in the Westbury.
Yeah.
And you did one night, and I remember watching, and a new bar, new setup for her. I've never seen somebody take to it and command the attention. And I've never seen this in any bar. The attention she commanded, the precision with which she did everything. She was doing a lot of things without even looking where her hands were going. And I just thought, but yeah, I mean, this is phenomenal. Taking it kind of reminded me of those really famous sushi chefs, you know, that can slice and dice and do amazing things. But
a little story about Gillian, and we talk about this in our new book, the Irish Whiskey Cocktail book. But when we first opened, like, Jack was very, very much behind the bar, and we had problem staff at that time. There was things happening, and staff were leaving, and everything seemed to be happening at once. Yeah. And there was one time upstairs, for example, Jack was bartending by himself for the entire room, and that's a hard feat to bartend for 40 people at that level by yourself. It was a very hard, but Jack did it, and he knew something had to be done. He knew, like, we have to make moves here. We have to get the right people in. And I said to him, like, because we were still at that point very unfamiliar with American bartenders. And I said to Jack, and this can go on record. Like, I said to Jack, have you anybody in mind? He says, Gillian Vos. And I go, are you sure? And he goes, aye. And there was two reasons. It was three reasons. One was her ability. She was obviously good at what she did. The other reasons was none of us had any idea that Gillian has Irish blood, as in her mum, Peggy, is from Dublin, and all her entire family live in Dublin right now. And Gillian would come in. She came in here on Christmas Eve one night, and her and her mum, and we're talking away to Jack, and Jack goes to me. I'll never forget him saying this to me. Do you know Gillian Vos' ma's Irish? And I go, no. And he goes, she's proper Irish, like your ma Irish.
Oh, right, okay.
She's not like Irish 20 times removed. She's like your ma Irish. And that, so there was that, the fact that Gillian was Irish in some way. And then She was the only person in the entire city when we came here that had an Irish whiskey section on our menu.
Wow.
She had 4 Irish whiskey cocktails and nobody else. You would not have seen an Irish whiskey cocktail in any bar.
Yeah.
And the thing, it was the fact that Gillian had Irish blood, and the fact that Gillian was promoting Irish whiskey cocktails, and the fact she was good is what got her the job here.
Yeah. Is she partly Australian and partly? Is it Australia, Irish?
No, it's American and Irish.
It's American and Irish, yeah. No, I have to say I was really blown away. You know, when you see somebody that is excellent at their job, you know, it could be anything. I don't know. It could be bricklaying. But there is something inspirational about.
We actually had this situation this week. We had a photographer in here, a girl photographer that was just mind blowing to watch. Like you see photographers and you see photographers. This girl, just watching her work was brilliant. We've been talking about it non-stop all week. You know. Yeah,
it is inspiring. Like people can take something done excellently. Like I'll never say anything's done perfectly because then you give up, right? But I mean, taking something and doing it excellently is. One quick question is there going to be a revised version of the book? Of the Barney to Blarney? Are you going to do another 2 months?
Is that because of new distilleries and bars?
New distilleries, yeah.
Bars closing, pubs closing. We don't know.
I mean, we would do one eventually, but not with. I think that the next focus for the couple of years is wrapping up the Irish whiskey book and the Irish coffee book. But I mean, that
I would say after that we could probably revisit it,
because the way that Irish distilleries are proliferating, and then obviously the pandemic, the landscape's going to change dramatically. So we will definitely update it at some point for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys not only is amazing at what you do, but you're fantastic business people as well. And I don't mean it necessarily in the money making sense of the word. I mean in the generating success from other people and in the branding and all the rest. How far ahead do you
back a bit and wait and see what happens? Well, like we're still planning very much to open in New Orleans next year. It was meant to be this year, and all the things were meant to happen this year. We've just literally everything's put us back a year. So that's where we are with that.
Look, you've had your setbacks as well. You know, you had the fire back in 2018.
Yep.
And that was on the one sense, I think you have a staff member to be thankful for, that the whole place didn't go up.
Yep.
And obviously the Blacktail then closed earlier this year. I mean, how do you take these setbacks? How do you take the positive from them? Because I know you guys do.
Well, I mean, you have to learn from them. You know, we've things happen. You have to figure out why they happen, and then make sure you don't repeat those mistakes. You know, so with the fire, there was some things that we needed to take care of. It was quickly remedied when we extended it into 32 Water Street, and then with Blacktail, there was a lot of fundamental business decisions that we pulled and extracted from that. But you know, myself and Sean, I think that the crucial piece for us succeeding is that when we win awards or when we get recognition or when the business does well, we never get too carried away with that. And then contrasting that with when things don't go your way, we never get too low with it either. You know, so we always stay in the middle, and we always just dust ourselves on and attack the next day, because there's no point in sitting feeling sorry for yourself. You know, one of our inspirational things now is we came across this article years ago, and I'm sure you can find it if you go online. I think it was the Wall Street Journal or New York Times. It was one of the two of them. Is the Irish pub in America dead? That's what the whole headline, and it basically was, do we need the Irish pub anymore? And I was actually meant to partake in a seminar in Tales of the Cocktail this year about that exact subject. Is the Irish pub dead? And they were wanting us to defend it, not me and Tim, the guy you met. But the thing is, it's one of the things, the driving forces, is we want to basically create an Irish bar like experience like this in 5 or 6 different cities of this country, and basically let everybody know that the Irish pub is very much alive and kicking. But that's our motivation. The Irish audience that we have is so important to us. It's like, okay, we have a lot of New York, a big New York fan base and a big other market fan, but the Irish audience, our social media is done by Connor Kelly. It's all Irish focused. It's aimed at our Irish audience all the time, because we just take the Irish thing so seriously. You know?
But what about so obviously there's bound to be competition comes up when people have success, and presumably you're getting a lot of plastic copies of your setup all around the place now.
But like guests can sense, guests can walk into a place and feel
absolutely,
genuine or not. You know, it's like it's the warmth. It's not just the way a place looks. It's the hospitality, and a lot of places you can't fake it. You've either got it or you don't get it. You know, that's just the way it is. It's like the training. The person in here, it's not only people that got to communicate to the guest properly and make that guest feel at home, like they're still in Ireland, like make them feel that way and make them feel very welcome. They've also got to be able to serve them a drink that's going to blow their mind and give them food that's going to blow their mind. It's the whole package, and people can fake all they want. They're not going to succeed. Because this is in our blood. It's something that, as Jack said, we wake up in the morning and we're not happy. We're never ever happy with what we've got. We always want better, and it's like our staff appreciate it and they want to be better. But you can't fake that. It's like you might get away with it for a few weeks or a few months, but you're not going to get away with it. You know?
And there is always going to be people that copy different pieces of what we do, and we've seen that. But as Sean said, it's the full focus on the totality of the experience, the website interface, the menus, the food, making our own bread for the going through the whole problems with the fry.
We had a major problem. We're doing Perrier water in here, and we had a major problem. We could not get Irish water, like sparkling water.
Really?
And it was driving us insane. And we went the lengths to get is it Tipperary or Ballygan or something, but we went the lengths to get it, and we just literally got it when we closed the bar. It took a long time because it's not available over here. But I'm telling you, like, we take that sort of thing we want to give people that come to this bar a bottle of sparkling Irish water, not French water. And there's nothing wrong with French, but you're in an Irish pub here, it should be an Irish. That's sparkling.
No, it's the level of detail as well. But like you say, you can't, some of these new bars that open up and they go out of the way to look old. Sometimes it works. Well, it doesn't really work in the long run, in my opinion. It's a difficult thing to get right. But it's not just the venue. But one of the things I was reading just before we came on, one of the important things that you look for is that you pay real attention to the building as well and the premises. What is it you look for in a premises? I mean, obviously, you have to do it up.
Covers transcends every aspect as character and personality. You know, you couldn't take Dead Rabbit and stick it in a brand new build out that just doesn't have it. So you're looking for the building to have that character. So 30 Water Street is obviously 1828. This building 32 is along the same time in the Francis Tavern historical block. The building that we have in New Orleans is from the 19th century. Very, very, it's beautiful facade. It has plenty of character, and we're obviously going to go in and be true to that. And even if when we expand in the other markets that we've identified, the buildings all have to have character. And our whole business plan is to scale, own the building, be in places that are competitive for the product to be in. But we're looking to tell a story. We're looking for it to be compelling. We don't want it to be, as John said, like fake or pat.
So it'll never be a franchise. It'll never be a franchise as such where you're just giving the name.
It won't be a franchise in the sense of like
we're involved in it.
Exactly. So for us, the one piece where it would be franchise is where we're talking about. We will have operators in each individual venue that will have a stake in the business, but that's the only thing that would. But it's not a franchise model. We would have to be in total control of everything because every single we can't go into a bar that's called Dead Rabbit and the Irish coffee is cold or the Guinness isn't served right or they don't know about Irish whiskey. All those things are extremely important to us. So it's not a model that we will be a part of. It's not to say in 10 years if some conglomerate comes in and buys Dead Rabbit, then that becomes a different thing, you know. But we're fully focused on telling our amazing story in as many places that makes sense.
I mean, there's, and I remember speaking to Sean about this the last time we were over and having a chat. There's not one item in the bar that is up there for display that isn't planned or thought about.
Yeah, totally.
No, it's just phenomenal. Look, obviously you ended up where you are now after leaving Merchant. How did that come about, and how did you end up in New York?
That's it.
So we came, as Sean has said, the Merchant, when we worked at the Merchant, Sean had obviously been there from day one. I came on a year or two afterwards. The bar towards the end of our tenure with the Connoisseurs Club and bringing all the American kind of judges over, the bar started to do really well. We won 1 year. We were nominated for 3, lost all 3, and we realized then that we had to make sure that we took more American people over so that they could begin to spread the word about what we were doing in Belfast. The following year with that new program, we won all 3, and then the year after that we won World's Best Bar, which was the first bar outside of America to win that.
First bar outside of New York.
New York to win that award. So that was, it was during that time that Connor Allen, who is our angel investor, he started spending a lot of time in the bar. Got to know myself and Sean, and he travelled extensively all over the world, and we would have told him what bars to go to, put him in contact with the owners, and he was very much of the opinion that what we were doing was world class. It was
better.
Yeah, like we were better than everybody, and he wanted to give us a platform to take that to a major city, the likes of a London or in New York. But he lived in New York, obviously. So through a whole big long story, we ended up getting to. I think Sean got to New York November, December of that year in 2010. What would have been
10 years ago. 10 years ago this year.
Yeah, and then I would have came on a couple of months the year after that, and the whole goal was to build a bar that was not going to be here today and gone tomorrow, like a lot of cocktail bars.
You had that in your head from then. So between 2010 and 2013, that you had the vision of having the Dead Rabbit as.
We had the vision of the Dead Rabbit. We had the vision of Dead Rabbit before we left Belfast.
Before we left, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. We had the name. We had the man with the rabbit. We had that. That's how we knew. Like it was going to be mid 1800s. Listen, people ask us all the time, where did the inspiration come from? To be honest with you, it's very, when you think about it, it's like we were both working in the Merchant. We both loved the cocktails of the Merchant, and we used to hang out. We used to hang out in the Duke of York, which is just down the street. And because when you finished working in the Merchant, say you finished at 6 o'clock, say you were doing a day shift, you'd know where to hang out. You weren't allowed to drink in the bar. It was unsightly for staff members to be drinking in the bar. So we drank in the Duke of York up the street. And I remember clearly there was this girl called a friend of Jack's, Lizzie Crossan, who said to me one night in Duke of York, everybody loves the Merchant's cocktails, but a lot of people are intimidated walking up those stairs. It would be great. It would be great if you could create a bar like the Duke of York that does cocktails. And that's where it started. It was basically bringing our two favorite bars together in one bar and making it make sense. So we came up with this whole story about when Irish and cocktails met in New York, when they were side by side. And first cocktail book ever published was written in 1862 by a guy in New York. But that same guy was working downtown like 20 years, 15 years before he wrote that book. So he was working in this area. And it was the exact same time as the immigrants were leaving Ireland to come to New York, famine-torn Ireland. And so we knew there was the Irish connection and the cocktail connection, mid-1800s, Lower Manhattan. And I looked up Google, mid-1800s, Lower Manhattan, Irish New York names. And up came this thing called List of Identities, Gangs of New York. And it was from the book, Herbert Asbury's book, the Gangs of New York. And I said, and I looked into it, and all the names of the gangs, the Plug Uglies, the Carryonians, whatever the hell it was, and the Dead Rabbits was one of the names. And I thought, that is an amazing name for a bar. The Dead Rabbit. Think about it, the Dead Rabbit, you know? That's how it came about.
Yeah. And then obviously you opened in 2013. And you're downtown New York. I mean, you're in the Peninsula area, aren't you?
Yeah.
Water Street.
Yeah, right at the bottom.
Everybody told us nothing survives below Canal. So if you're below Canal, you're going to close. And this block that we're on, the Francis Tavern historical block, it was very infamous for everywhere closing that opened on it. Yeah. There literally was tumbleweed going up past the front door before we opened this bar. Nothing was here. Nothing. Right. And we believed in the bar. We believed in the building. We believed in the story. And we were both familiar with this area. And it's not like we were coming in here blind. We were familiar with the area, and our partners are all based in this area. So we sort of knew, right, we've got a bit of an advantage because we know the area. Our partners are all based in the area. One of our partners owns the building, and it's got the history. It's got the whole story. It's got the location. Another thing when you're opening a bar in New York, you've got to think, like, is it close to a subway? This building, even though it may be downtown, it's got like 10 subway stops right beside it. Yeah. So things like that, things like bus stops being outside the door and taxi stops across the street, that's all like, it was all like, there's 2 lanes of traffic going each way. Whereas you go to East Village, like it's 1 lane of traffic, it's one-way street. It's hard to get to. There's a lot of walking involved. Whereas here, it's like you can easily get here.
Like, was it derelict before you took it over, almost, or?
I mean, it was desolate. You know, me and Sean would have sat in front of the building many times during the week when Sean finished work. He worked around the corner, and you could have counted on one hand the amount of people that walked past the building. But we fully believed in the story and the product that we were about to do, and we fully believed that when we opened, when we got the people to the bar, we would get them to come back because of how compelling the product was we were delivering. So it definitely was like people were. We both remember distinctly the people that said we were crazy, but we believed. We had full confidence that it would be successful.
So, like between 2010 and 2000, you had working in other bars, obviously making a living, scraping by. New York's not a cheap place to be, I suppose.
Sharing an apartment, and that was something else. That experience.
I stayed in New York 2 nights. One night I stayed in the Pierre Hotel because my friend had a Merrill Lynch conference, and the next night I ran out of money because a cappuccino was $35 in the Pierre. And so the next night, the YMCA was full. The YMCA was full. I stayed one night in Central Park, and in the park, and one night in the Pierre. So typical, younger days. But look, were you successful when you kicked off?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you. Like, so there's a couple of reasons why. Our PR company at the time was amazing. And listen, it's not to say they're not amazing now. It's just that they had a very unique story. To be telling, and in it, we were like the bar that was supposed to open. Hurricane Sandy put us back 4 months. We opened on John Morrissey's birthday. John Morrissey was the leader of the Dead Rabbits. And so there was 2 reasons why. Was because the PR had been massive before we even got the doors open, and the second thing was I think a lot of people thought that what they were doing was new. They'd never seen something like this before, an Irish pub doing cocktails. And I would say that the third thing, and definitely not the thing to be underestimated anyway, was with Jack McGarry bartending behind a bar. Nobody in this city had ever seen anything like him bartend. And I don't know whether he likes me talking about his bartending days or not, but he was a phenomenal bartender. Like Conor Allen would describe it. I could give you all kinds of different analogies, but Conor Allen, the guy that brought us over, said, I don't know if you ever seen George Best playing football, but that's what it was like watching Jack bartend. He just had this, he was just, the way he worked was very hypnotic. I can remember clearly that there was a guy he was the editor of the Sunday World in Belfast, and he was meeting his wife and his son and his son's girlfriend to go for dinner in the Merchant Hotel. And him and his wife, they were waiting on the son and the daughter coming in, but they were just sitting riveted to Jack bartending. And it was a Sunday afternoon. I was meeting my own mother and father, and the guy called me across, Jim McDowell, I know him, and he goes to me, I got that kid bartend. He said, I've never seen anything like. He said, I've seen something like that once in my life. He said, when I was a kid, I seen a man, a guy with shoes, cobbling shoes, and the way he was doing it with the way, and he done all the hand movements. And he said, it totally fascinated me the way he moved. He said, that kid bartending is the only thing I've ever seen that's like that. He said, he's just fucking fantastic, but that's the way Jack was. You were riveted when you watched him bartend, and that's just the way. But Jack, when we opened this bar, Jack was a big story. He was our PR company, for example, in Jack, there was a big story there because this guy was a shit hot bartender from Ireland that nobody had ever seen before. And he was doing the damage. Like he really did do what needed to be done back in those days.
And of course, I mean, 2015, 2016 were huge years. I mean, you won Bartender of the Year, International Bartender of the Year. I think the youngest person ever to win that award. Yeah. And then the following year, Bar of the Year in the top 50 bars.
He won that award 4 months after we opened the doors.
Yeah.
He won it like in 2013. 2013 he won that award. Yeah.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
But listen, the way it is, I'm not going to. We don't really care about awards. Like we cared about them back in those days. But we've come to realize the way it works is you have your moment, and then people get fed up with you and they don't vote you anymore. It's something to do. Like as I said to you at the start of the show, before we closed, we were the best we've ever been, and that's both of us telling you. That's Gillian. Not one year when we won those awards were we better anywhere close to what we were like when we closed this bar. But we'll never win an award because our time's just passed. We're past tense. But listen, the most important thing for us is our Irish audience love us to death, and we love them to death, and we just want to do what we can for Ireland and for our Irish audience. That's our competition moving forward, is keeping our Irish audience happy.
Yeah, well, I mean, that comes across, and it's very evident that that's the case. But look, it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't always easy. I know, Jack, you've had difficulties in the past, and I don't know if you don't want to talk about them, that's fine. But I know for me, it's inspirational, and I know for a lot of the younger people, and people with difficulties, very inspirational. You had your demons, and I know 25th of March 2016 is a particularly important date for you when you hit rock bottom, and it was a wake-up call.
Yeah, 100. I mean, so that there was essentially a whole period, a year of my life where things were just all over the place. You know, I was kind of riddled with it was kind of the chicken and the egg thing. I believe at that point it was depression and anxiety. But then on the night that you were talking about, on the 25th of March, I went out and got absolutely hammered. And then the next day I woke up with my stomach pumped and with doctors and all that type of stuff. So basically, I remember that, like, waking up that day, that was very much my first thought was that this is rock bottom. So it became then where I was like, right, I have an alcohol, like I'm an alcoholic, I have an addiction problem, and it became about attacking that problem and figuring that out. So that was nearly 5 years ago. And don't
well, congratulations on being dry for so long.
Yeah, it's still like, listen, I still keep my eye on it, but I mean, I'm the strongest now that I've ever been. And I'm so grateful now. Like, if I had been drinking during coronavirus, like back in the, I don't even know if I'd have been alive, you know, to be honest with the amount of shit that's happening over here. So
it's not that. See in this day and age that we're in now, and you know what I'm talking about, the PC world.
Yep.
For pub owners like me and Jack to be drinking, it's in the bar. It's we shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
I stopped drinking. I was obviously inspired by Jack, but not. I didn't have the same reasons. Jack normally had a drink problem. When he drank after 3 pints, we called it the magic 3 or whatever. Once he had 3 pints of Guinness, he just drank for Ireland.
Broke the tail, and that's it. Yeah.
And he would have woke up asleep somewhere. You know, I was never that type of a drinker, but I was a drinker that went home and had a bottle of wine every night after work.
All right.
And it put weight on me. It was just making me unhealthy and put weight on me. And so I stopped it more for I didn't want to be heavy. I didn't want to have a high cholesterol and all that sort of shit. So I stopped it over saying it like 3 years ago last May. But I'll still taste. I'm not as strict and as regimented as Jack is about it. I'll still, if Jillian makes a great drink, I'll still taste it. I'm not going to spit it out. I'm not that bad. But I'm just saying I don't have that sort of a problem. But it's like I think in this day and age, especially in a city like New York, bar owners can't. You can't be drinking in the bar.
Yeah, we've gone too PC maybe, but
your staff can't see you like that. Your guests can't see you like that, and you just shouldn't be like that, you know, because like you might think you're cool when you're drunk, but you're not. Like, I mean, if you're in this bar, you know, it's just not on. It's not on.
It's just not great leadership, you know. Getting to see your colleagues seeing you drunk.
And a guy was asking us last week, to be honest, a guy on one of these things, a guy from Canada was asking us, what's the secret of our success, as in being able to stick together so long. And I told him, and I'm not joking you, the fact that we don't drink has definitely helped it, because I would actually say that the time that we were worst was when we were both drinking. In a close proximity. Drinking. So I would say that's when we were our worst. And I'm not saying everybody stop drinking. I'm not saying that.
No, but
we need you to drink
more.
But I'm just saying for our relationship, it's definitely been helpful.
Yeah. Tell me, what was it like? And I know, Jack, it must have been a difficult situation for you. And I know that, you know, alcoholics, they feel a lot that they've let down people and all the rest. And that's a big thing to carry.
Yeah.
What was it like for Sean? What was it like for you watching, you know, your buddy go through what he did? The
first thing he said to me is, let down people. The very next day that he did this, me and him were supposed to go to Cuba.
All right.
So we were actually, I had to go on to Cuba. We were doing research for Blacktail. It was just before Blacktail opened. It was before Blacktail opened, and we were doing research. But friends of ours from Belfast were meeting us in Cuba, and they were in the plane. So I had whether like if it had been me and him going, and they weren't already in Cuba, I would have stayed with Jack, and I had to go. It was I had to go that day, knowing, because I was meeting the people from Belfast. I had to meet those people because they were going to be in Cuba by themselves. Yeah. And it was Richard Ryan and these guys from Drinksology from Belfast.
Oh yeah, I know them. Yeah.
And it was our social media guy, our Connor Kelly person of the time. They were flying over to go to Cuba to meet me and Jack there. So I had to leave him. But at the time, listen, he'd been in a weird place for a while. I'm going to be honest with you. Like the fact that he went so extreme with it, what happened on that date, all you're talking about, it's like I never seen that coming.
Right.
But I knew that he was, like, I would have tended to think back then, because depression was a new word. People weren't talking about depression. And I would have tended to think he'll snap out of it. I actually thought he had relationship problems. I thought that's what the whole thing was about. But I never thought it was as serious as it was. I just didn't. I just thought he needed some time on his own, you know. But you got to understand as well. So before this happened, Jack had sort of been out of work quite a while. He had been out of work a bunch of months.
Right.
So we were all sitting back, sort of letting Jack have his moment, because we didn't want to put pressure on him, and we felt he knows where we are if we need him. Just let him have his time. He was with his wife at that time, and it's like it's not like he was on his own or anything. We didn't know. I would have thought that the problem was a relationship problem. But listen, it's one of those things. It's depression was a new word that nobody really understood. I certainly didn't understand it, because I've never felt it, and I didn't understand it.
Well, look, here's a picture of when you won your award, Better Days. I think that's Gillian in the middle as well.
So Jack at that point was definitely, he was going through that period at that time.
Yeah,
I can tell by looking at him.
I can tell by the color of the suit.
Yeah, he was wearing flip-flops with that suit. Flip-flops he was wearing that night, and I remember everybody was talking about his flip-flops. But Jack was definitely at that point, and he was like maybe drinking more than he should have. But listen, I didn't think he had any kind of a big problem. The one thing I will say about it is the recovery that he's had, as in the commitment to recovery, as in going to all the things he needed to go to, and doing what he needed to do, and meeting the people and speaking to the people. That has been like second to none. I don't even know if that help would be available in Ireland the way he was, the recovery he got over here. But the guy that you see now is like 100 times the person that he was, and he rightfully should be the model for anybody that's got those sort of problems, because what he was to what he is now is two different people.
No, I do see that, and I think for me, you've had your achievements in the bar, and you've had all your success. And if I was to I was trying to pick out one moment that I thought you guys really nailed it, and it surpassed everything in terms of awards, all the recognition that you got was this moment here, and it struck me because Belfast has its issues with depression and suicide, and unfortunately, I know many people that are no longer with us because of this. And for me, this was of all the achievements that you have done, for me, this was the biggest one, and it just struck a chord with me. And I'm sure
that was a very important night for us. Important. The people who were there that night, the fact that it happened when we were launching the book in that distillery, and the support we got from the distillery, being honest, it was a special moment, and we seen that moment like months and months before it happened, because we really worked hard to make that happen exactly as it happened. It was very, very important for us that everything went exactly as you seen it,
Well, I mean, I think that was a point, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass, because there's no point in it, but there comes a point where, what you admire in somebody turns to respect. And for me, that was the moment that I became very respectful of what you've done. And that's just on the aware side. I know there's other stuff, that the fact that you're making it publicly aware of the struggles that you have gone through. And nobody goes through these problems alone, in the sense that other people are affected. So I mean, totally. Sean stuck by it, and I know your family. I can see it, especially your dad. I see it, and now that you both got families, and obviously there's a commitment there to stay dry and all the rest. So every day is a day. So I wish you best of luck with that.
Thank you very much.
But look, just going further, then there's questions about opening up bars, opening up new versions of the whiskey, talk about the new books. There's rumors as well about a distillery in Belfast. I don't know, is that something you'd like to do long term, or is it?
So we can't talk about that.
Okay. So look forward to that happening over the next while. I know that if it's in your head, it'll happen. But so what's the plan then over the next while, other than get through this pandemic, try and sort out things, and get the staff back?
I mean, that's it's the sole focus, I know it's the same for both of us when we go to bed and when we wake up, it's to solidify New York, get New York back on track, get as many people as we can back, and get firing on all cylinders. It's going to be a couple of year long process to get back anywhere near where we were. But I mean, listen, there's definitely there's going to be opportunities for us to capitalize on it. So we're looking at it as an opportunity to fix some things that we wouldn't have had the opportunity to fix with the way that we were operating. So get New York back online and then get back into the expansion plan. Obviously, New Orleans is a big part of that. But
what's the plan with New Orleans in terms of? I heard things about linking Cuba to Ireland, or is that what that?
It's just that we were looking into stuff like that when we had Blacktail going to kind of complete that trip back of a story.
Yeah,
but
we're going to open a bar like with the whole concept and everything done called the Galician, because it was a connection that sort of brought Cuba and Ireland together. A lot of people call Galicia in northern Spain the seventh Celtic nation, and it is. I haven't been. I was actually planning on going this year, September. I was actually supposed to be there like next month, and I was going to go out there for like 2 weeks or 12 days or whatever. And I was gonna, because apparently it is very like Ireland or Scotland. The countryside looks that way, and the people look different. They're more like white skinned like we are, for example, and their national instrument is like a bagpipe, which is it's all, and the music is very, very like traditional Irish, traditional Scottish music. So we believe that there was the Celtic connection there, and we also knew that a lot of Cubans, that like Spanish origin Cubans, so Cuba is made up of a lot of different nationalities. You've got Africans, you've got French, you've got Chinese, you've got like the Spanish, and the Spanish people that would have came to Cuba in the 1920s or whatever, the immigrants. They came from a couple of different areas in Spain, and one was Galicia, one was Asturias, which is right next door to Galicia, and the other one would have been the Canary Islands. So we knew there was a connection, and like Fidel Castro's parents and stuff come from Galicia, and it's just we wanted to bring. We were going to call it the Galician. It was going to be like a Spanish type pub, Spanish type Irish pub that brought Cuba and Ireland together and would have made it make sense, because everybody over here asks all the time, what do two Irish people want to open a Cuban bar for? The Americans can't seem to understand it. I don't think people back in Ireland have a problem understanding it. I think they sort of can see similarities, and even though we don't speak the same language, they can see similarities. But over here, people can't understand. People cannot see the similarities at all. So we want to do something that made the whole thing make sense. But that's not happening. That's not happening.
That's not going to happen. I'm sure there'll be stuff that can. So
to get back to New Orleans, we're going to be opening a tap room. That's the model for moving forward. So we're going to be doing everything that we do in this floor. We've worked really hard to bridge the difference between the tap room and the parlor in terms of the cocktail level. But our whole focus now is to show Americans in as many cities it makes sense what a proper Irish pub ought to be. Obviously with our emphasis on quality products. Okay.
One of the things that I have been hearing as well is talks about a Broadway show or some Hollywood kind of story. Is that all crap, or is it?
Well, Broadway is like thinking 10 years ahead, mate. It has to start off in Belfast first, you know? No, so Jack's the night that me and Jack left Belfast, we had a sort of party in the back room of the Duke of York. And Jack's mom, I remember sitting there, and they said, they're both like community playwrights back in Belfast. And well, my mum has passed away, but Jack's mum and my mum, they write and they perform mostly for the community. Jack's mum sort of made a bigger name because she wrote a play that was well known in Belfast City Centre. But they both sat there and were drinking their Belfast martinis, which is Smirnoff vodka and Coke. So they were drinking their Belfast martinis, and they said to each other, we should write a play about these two idiots. We were going to New York like the next month. So that's where the sort of idea about this play about these two idiots in the Maz sense, and they weren't really idiots, but they basically said that's where to play. And that she then said that to somebody else. The Maz said that, so who said it to somebody else, and all of a sudden, fuck, we've got an idea here. So the person that's taken it, Murray Jones, is probably, I would say, Northern Ireland's top playwright. But when Murray Jones opens a new play in Belfast, it's a big deal, like, and we tend to think that the Murray Jones stroke Dead Rabbit connection in Belfast would be a winner. And it's telling the story, it's Rags Rich, it's the story of me and him coming here. and there's a lot of humor in that, a lot of darkness, a lot of madness. But it's two Belfast boys, local small town boys, like as in coming from Muldoon, North Belfast, going over to New York and taking on the Medi Giant and beating it, like back in those days, where Jack wins best bartender and all, and it's a very emotional night that night. But it's that whole journey, and I think it would go down well in Belfast. And I think based on the success of Belfast, I think Dublin would be right next. But I think we need to make a name in Belfast. We need to get people talking about it in Belfast, our hometown. And then I think we could take it in different parts of Ireland. But yes, we've got big plans for it, and we think if it could be, Mary Jones has had like big success internationally. Like she's not confined to Belfast by any means. She's written plays that have been brought to Broadway, brought over the world. And we think if it does well in Belfast and Dublin next, then we will look at Edinburgh. We'll look at taking it on a global New York, obviously New York, and then we'll see what happens. But listen, I believe in the play. I think the play. And I believe in Mary Jones as a writer. I think the play could do well, and it could be Broadway, but it's certainly not going to be Broadway next year.
Well, look forward to attending that one when it happens. What's the name of the concert hall in the
Carnegie
Hall? Yeah. But what was it going to? Jack, you're not bartending at the moment, then. So what are you kind of doing? What's your role now?
So when I stopped bartending, I try to look for gaps and try to fill the gaps. So when we first opened, like our whole thing with Irish whiskey, when we first opened, we had all these Irish whiskeys, but neither of us knew about Irish whiskey. So the gap that needed to be filled then was find out as much about Irish whiskey, go to all the distilleries. So back then that was the 3 distilleries. Obviously I've went and seen as much as I can since then. But when I stopped bartending, it became operations and standards and training and educating and recruitment, and basically learning the systems and structure so that when we scale and get bigger, that we don't dilute what we're about.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, obviously, if you're opening 5 bars, do you end up diluting yourself and diluting the brand, or stretching it up too thin?
I don't think so. I think we would if we opened the tap room and parlor in every place that we went into. I think by being hyper focused on what we call our facts, which is our food, the authentic Irish hospitality, our cocktails, and the trifecta, which is our Guinness, our Irish whiskey, and our Irish coffee and Irish whiskey cocktails. I think by focusing on those 4 things, building all the infrastructure so that we execute that, I believe that we can do it. Now, it's the thing that keeps myself showing up at nights. Well, not nights right now because of the virus, but we've been to bars where it's been the 3rd or 4th iteration of that bar in different cities, and they've been terrible. And and we do not want the rabbit to become that. We want it to be everything that it is here, but with a local twist. And we want it to be executed at a very high level. So I'm confident that we can do that. But if you're asking me what my focus is, that's what my full focus is on those type of things.
And the cities that we're going to are like deliberately chosen. Yeah, we're not just opening in a dead rabbit for the sake of it. Like New Orleans is 100% deliberately chosen. Because we think the tap room will work well in that city, and we think we'll embrace the city will embrace us. It's mutual respect, and we want to go to New Orleans, and we're excited about it. And listen, it's a light at the end of the tunnel for us. It's like that is the thing that keeps us going right now.
Well, do you need that? Do you need to have that goal at the end every day to have something to look at?
At the end of the COVID, you need to have that light, because you just you need to think this is still happening. But the one thing I'd like to say, going back to the thing you were talking to Jack about a second ago, when we came here, so when we opened the bar 8 years ago, whatever it was, we had a big Irish whiskey selection, like the Duke of York in Belfast, and but nobody knew anything about Irish whiskey. I mean, it was just bottles in the back of the bar. You can't do that in New York. You can do that in Belfast. You can make people do it in Dublin. You can't do it in New York. See, if you open a big whiskey bar and you're Irish whiskey, you're expected to know about it, and that's it. This city is full of whiskey drinkers, and they know their stuff about whiskey. Irish whiskey is a thing that's new to them, because up until recently, it was only really Jameson or Powers.
It was a slamming drink, wasn't it? A shot drink.
So they never really took it seriously. But what happened was they were taking Scotch seriously. They were taking Japanese whiskey seriously. They were taking Irish whiskey, American whiskey very seriously. So they never really took Irish whiskey. So now all of a sudden, Irish whiskey is a serious thing, and they want to know more about it, because it's that category of whiskey that they don't know much about. So they're very keen because they need to know, because they're whiskey connoisseurs. See, if you open a whiskey bar here in this city and you don't want to think about it, you are doomed, because they want to talk about whiskey. They don't want to talk. If you're known as a whiskey bar, you've got to know about whiskey.
But it's the same with, I think it's changing now here, but I mean, similarly with cocktails, I mean, they know their cocktails, you know, there's no messing around and trying to pull the wool over their eyes. Same with their cigars. But, you know, and anybody that thinks they can just go over to the States and put a shamrock on something and be successful in their business is so mistaken. And, you know, I've seen it in bars and I've seen it in brands of whiskey as well. And unfortunately, they don't really wash long term with people. Yeah. Certainly not with me anyway. But look, as I say, I was going to mention this and talk about how did that come about, and what was the reason that you decided to launch your own.
So, listen, with the whiskey, we've always a huge emphasis on Irish whiskey, and the opportunity came about with Dead Rabbit, and the partnership was quite essential to make our own blend. So with that opportunity, there was only so much we could do within the remit of the juice that we had and stuff like that. So the focus was just to make it a point of difference and to kind of have a slightly drier, edgier style of Irish whiskey. So obviously the ABV comes into that, and the virgin oak gives it that bit of edge at the end of it.
44%, I thought, was an unusual percentage.
Yeah,
you know,
so we tried all the way from the 40 right up to the low 50s, and then within that we tried with the virgin oak. We tried it from 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks. We tried it all the way through. So we settled on what we settled with, and don't get me wrong, it's a blend, but it's a high quality blend. The bottle looks brilliant. It's adaptable. It works in cocktails. It works in highballs. But we definitely intend to add some other marks within that in due course. So it's something we're very proud of. You know, it seems to be going very well in America, and we've obviously
it's going well here, I think, as well.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we're very happy with the taste. For an entry-level Irish whiskey, we think it's very good. You know?
Oh, I think it's above an entry level, to be fair to you guys. I think it's above an entry, and look forward to what's going to come out in the... Look, I mean, you guys are very busy guys. What do you do when you're not working? The few minutes that you... I know you're a runner, yeah.
No, we both run and read and spend time with the partners, you know. So that's really what's keeping us going at the moment. And then talk to, like we're doing, a couple of these, it makes sense. And we're just then fully focused on what's happening around us and getting ready for when we reopen, you know.
Yeah. Let me see. There's a couple of questions in that I can't read because I'm blind. So bear with me. So Michael Matthews is here, and he's saying Jack would be a great advocate to talk to young people here in Dublin on the dangers of alcoholism. So that's and then brilliant comment about Jack from Jim McDowell. I know Big Jim too, great guy.
Everybody knows everybody back home.
Oh, look, it's crazy. Like, and I didn't even spend that much time up there. I seem to have met an awful lot. I mean, Breen, I'm sure Kieran Breen, did he have a Conor Breen brother? Sean Breen?
I don't know. I don't know where
the Conor Breen.
It was up in the Eagle Bar at the bottom of Cliftonville Street.
I don't believe so. Yeah, I'll ask him the next time I see Kieran, but I don't believe so.
I've heard of Conor Breen, though. I don't know. I just heard of the name.
It says the revolution of whiskey up north in recent years is brilliant to see and great for Irish whiskey, and the lads are an extension of that. I mean, take off my headset instead of my eyes. I haven't been drinking, but look, I mean, everybody I've spoken to is in really holds you in very high esteem, and I know it's a very well-earned reputation to have, and you've worked hard for it. And you've done an awful lot for Irish whiskey. Obviously, stateside, you've also been involved in humanitarian efforts. I call them humanitarian efforts as well. And you should be really proud of that. And I love meeting with you. I love talking to you. And I hope to see you in this neck of the woods soon. Maybe we'll catch up in Belfast when you're over again. Is there there's a few questions in... here we go. Would you like to... This is the problem. Would you like to work closer with farmers? and grow the grain.
Yeah.
That's from Bobby Miller, who is Bobby. Hi, how are you? He's a member of the Irish Grain Growers Association. So it's a good question from.
Yeah,
so
sounds interesting for sure.
I mean, we love what I think it's Waterford.
Waterford
are doing that and utilizing blockchain technology. So I think that's definitely that's really cool, and that's definitely we anything that gives Irish whiskey further uniqueness, we're fully on board with.
Anything we can do for Ireland at all, that way.
Well, I mean, I do see it, and actually,
if we could get Irish beef here, we'd be using Irish beef,
Yeah, maybe not in the cocktail. Oh, maybe. I mean, one of the things that struck me is actually how generous you were with your support when other people won the whiskey bar of the year or the bar of the year. I thought that was really nice to see. So, look, I don't think your time has come. I don't think you're out of fashion at all. I think you're very much at the hub of what's happening in Irish whiskey, particularly in the States. I'd love to see you extend that to the rest of the world. I'd love to see it in Belfast, particularly. For me, that would be really special.
Again, I just think the one thing I'd say, people have asked before at the whiskey things, seminars and stuff that they have back in Dublin, what do we think people could do to be promoting Irish whiskey? And I just think, honestly, we did the pub tour of Ireland. Okay, a lot of it was old pubs.
Yeah.
160 pubs, 160, and we would have asked out of curiosity Irish coffee every single time.
Yeah.
And only a handful of places make it, and only an even smaller handful of places make it anyway decent. Because it's hassle for a lot of people, and I understand it. But if we could all just take that drink seriously and treat it as like our national cocktail, I just think we would do so much for Irish whiskey category, because people would be curious about what's in that. And there's your chance, Irish whiskey. What's Irish?
If I see it out of a if I see cream come out of a can again, I'll be upset. But look, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for being on the show. I really wish you get through this crap, and I have no doubt you'll come through it stronger and better. And look forward to seeing you over here. So look after yourselves.
So just thank you for everything that you're doing for the category.
Well,
and for having us on.
Of course, thank you.
Well, thanks very much as well. So look after yourselves, and we'll make the podcast available for everybody to be able to download if anybody wants to have a read. I'm sure lots of interest. So we have a huge number of people I had on already, and I'm sure I ignored lots of people's questions. So apologies for a lot there. Look, I've kept you long enough, although it's still early there. So. But I want to go home and get my dinner. So, look, take care of yourselves. Thanks a lot.
Yes, all the best. I'll see you later.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Good one.
Okay, so just want to thank the guys again. That was a really interesting chat with Jack and Steve, Jack and Sean, and I know that they have some huge plans and some interesting stuff to come ahead. Just ourselves before we go, we had some big news ourselves today. I suppose we've been working through COVID and typical times. It's hard to get to print at the moment with backlogs and reduced staff working in print. So our next issue of Irish Whiskey Magazine is going to be September. So we're delayed about 8 weeks with that. We have been working though behind the scenes, I suppose, working on developing a new website and bringing the magazine online. And I want to thank a few people for the help in getting us that done. And Andrew Rooney has been working with us. Andrew Rooney, who was doing Dublin Whiskey Tour, has been working with me for the last 3 or 4 months. And with the website going live today, we just want to announce it. And I want to thank Andrew for his help in actually helping us achieve that, and in the moral support as well. So I think if we can show the trail of what we've been working on, and if you're interested, go and have a look. And that's it. If you're going to go to So that's launching the website. I thought it was apt to have the guys from the Dead Rabbit on, since they were in issue 1 of the magazine. So if you're interested, go and have a look at irishwhiskeymagazine.com. A lot of you will get an email anyway with special offer. And stay safe until next week. We'll announce our guest later on in the week. And good evening. Thank you.